Call to order the meeting of Ulster County IDA, July 2nd, 2024. It's 10:04 a.m. May I please have everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to do a quick roll call. Costa Bahal present. Mr. Kelly?
Present.
Rachel?
Present.
Thank you. We have everybody here. May I please request Mr. Kelly and Ms. Silverman to just review the minutes from last meeting, and we can proceed to approval of those if everything is okay.
Motion.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I don't think we have any public comment unless anybody else or anybody here has anything. All right. I don't think we need executive session either. Steve, Rachel?
No.
No?
No.
Perfect. We do want to switch one thing quickly. There is a discussion of cost benefit analysis tool that we already own. If we could move the new business before old business, if everybody's okay, we can have the team on the screen, MRB Group, describe what they have.
All right. So I'm gonna so this is MRB Group. They have a cost-benefit analysis tool that IDAs across the state utilize when doing projects. And me being new to the IDA, I'm unfamiliar with the product. So one of the things you guys did recently was they upgraded the tool to allow IDAs to use it for housing projects as well. And as per the last governance committee discussion, we invited them here to kind of give us an overview of the tool and then, figure out what it is, and then also discuss the housing, because I believe it's a $1,000 purchase if we were to utilize the housing tool, but I'll let them talk about it. And hopefully, if you guys could just speak really quick to see if everyone can hear you. I might. Oh, nope, I can't hear you. All right, hang on one second. Yeah, it was working a second ago. All right, try just talk one more time for me. Like, I just had it. Apps using your Zoom microphone. Natalie, do you know how to? I'm sorry. I'm gonna do that. All right, wait, try now. Okay, so now I've started messing with it. Fail to detect your microphone. I'm sorry, guys. Should maybe just check my audio devices.
Okay. They can't. There's no audio coming out of it for them, right? Can they hear you or no?
And I don't know because I can't hear them.
Now we can
Oh,
There we go.
Yeah, I lost audio on them too.
we can hear you.
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. So 1 sec. So maybe they can hear us. Okay.
All right.
What about now?
Yeah. Can you guys hear us? What did we have it to? A second ago, it was just working.
Smart sound.
Try that one.
Actually, I'm
There we go. Okay.
And I'll make sure I can actually do screen share. At host disabled participant.
All right. Wait. I'm gonna.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear us?
So if you guys can hear me, you're gonna also need to enable screen sharing.
All right. Screen share is enabled. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm gonna do in the chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
say we can hear them. And
Let's
then
see the screen. There you go. All right.
think there was a message that said mic not detected on Zoom.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Uh,
Yes, you can hear me. I can't hear you yet.
Let me just try it. Let me try one more thing here.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's only detecting the
All right.
loudspeaker.
Sharing for a second here.
I'll just say start
We
talking.
can chat. Yeah, instead, yeah.
You can hear me.
Uh,
Okay. We can't hear you.
I will use
Please
the
just start.
chat.
Okay. I'm going to start, and I'm going to count on you guys to wave if there's some big thing that I need to stop and explain some more. Okay. So I'll share my screen in just a second, but let me introduce myself. Michael Andolo, I'm the Director of Economic Development for MRB Group. I've been in economic development consulting for the last 20 years, quite a bit in upstate New York, but we do also work in Texas and South Carolina right now. And I'm going to introduce Connor, the analyst.
Hey everybody, I'm Connor Hartnett. I'm an economic analyst here with MRB Group. I helped put together the tool we're going to go over today. And following our conversation this morning, if anybody has any follow-up questions, I'll be the guy to reach out to, and I can help you out with those.
All right, great. So, we, as mentioned previously, you are customers of the MRB cost benefit tool, which we published a few years ago now, about 3 years ago now, roughly, a little bit less than 3 years. And right now, there are approximately 42 or 43 IDAs across the state that use this tool. In late 2023 or so, we issued the new version of the tool, which allows for IDAs to examine housing projects. So we're going to go over that with you. I'm going to just go through a whole project, start to finish, but the new part of it is the housing part. In addition, in that update, we have updated all of the background multipliers and factors that go into this analysis, right? So the model that you're currently using has the factors and multipliers that were current as of that date, which is now, like I said, 2 to 3 years ago. The new version has the new multipliers and the new factors in there. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen, and Connor, you're going to have to yell at me if there's a question that comes up, because I'm not going to be able to see the chat.
Just let me know if you guys are not put it in the
All right,
chat.
so I pre-populated this just so you can see it. And by the way, I'm using the county model because that they were one of the ones that purchased the update, so you can see the full update. I pre-populated this just so you don't have to watch me painfully enter this in. You know, this is a mixed-use project at 123 Main Street. The first section here is construction phase. We're saying it's a $50 million overall project, right? So that's the total budget. But this number here, this $32 million, is local construction spending, which means however you define local, right? And most people look at the county or look at a multi-county region. How much is the developer going to spend on materials and labor within that region? So this is a question you should be asking in your application. In this case, the project, again, this is completely hypothetical. This is not an existing project, is a mixed-use project. So of that $32 million, 16 of it is for commercial building construction, and 16 of it is for multifamily building construction. Okay? I put these into a drop down. You just select the type of construction that's most applicable in each case. Make sure that it adds up to 100%. And that's pretty much all that you need to put in for the construction phase impacts. Here's the new part, new household spending. We're saying that this project has 40 units. 30 of them are market rate, and 10 of them are affordable, right? So you just enter in, some type of identifier. I just said market rate units here. 30 market rate units, but this is the key one. Target income. This is the approximate household income of the occupants of the market rate units. And you can see in here, you select whichever bracket makes the most sense. We have 10 affordable units, obviously making quite a bit less than the market rate units. And then, and what this is used for is this is used to model the impacts of household spending, right? Now, I'm going to step aside here and just have a tiny little methodological discussion here. You only want to induce new housing units, right? If they're not new, then you're not really doing anything here, right? So this is where you have a chance to specify that. If you're saying all 40 of those units are new, then you put 100% in here, right? If they're not, then you don't. But what does new mean? It means, but for this project, there wouldn't be these 40 units in the county, right? And we get a lot of questions about this, but this is a key aspect of the housing, of the question of whether or not IDA should be inducing housing. If you're inducing housing that's going to exist anyhow, why are you inducing it? If you are, it's 100%, right, essentially. Or if in the case where you say, well, the affordables are new, but the market rate aren't, there's different ways to do that. Most people just put 100% in because, again, why would you be inducing it if it's not new to the county? Which leaves you with 40 units and the total household spending per year of 1.3 million. All right, operation phase impacts. Again, this is just a facetious project here. I put in a NACE code that has to do with footwear and leather good repair, 50 jobs, they each earn $55,000. And then you have 2 people that are related to the residential building, lessors of residential buildings. So this is year 1. We're saying in year 1, 50 of these footwear and leather good jobs, 2 jobs related to the upkeep and maintenance and running of the residential units. Same thing in year 2, except that the earnings bumped up a little bit. Same thing in year 3, the earnings bumped up a little bit. And here, what we say is it's year 3 plus, which means what are the employment counts in year 3 and thereafter? We assume that most projects by year 3 are up to full employment, right? And that's the end of the economic piece. The fiscal piece, your sales tax exemption, and then you put your local sales tax rate there, which I don't actually know offhand. Maybe Connor, you do. Ulster, I believe Ulster's 4. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'll just leave it the way it is. But you would put the correct rate in here, because this is obviously the Broome County rate. I don't want to overwrite anything here. So, and then your mortgage recording tax exemption, and you have the state at 0.5%. You guys at 0.25%. Again, if you don't have one, or if you have more or less, you adjust those percentages. And then the pilot term is 10 years. You can adjust that to whatever you want. It can be as little as 1 year. It can be as much as 50 years. And then we have an escalation factor and a discount factor. Property tax exemption. This looks confusing, but it's actually very straightforward. This is the property tax without the project. In year 1, the site, unimproved, would produce $80,000 of property tax. In year 1, you're saying the estimated pilot is $250,000, right? You're also saying that if there were the project, but there were no pilot abatement, it would generate $750,000, right? And what does that mean? It means in year 1, if the project moves forward, the community gets $170,000 more in tax revenue than it would without the land, with just the land. And the value of the abatement to the developer is $500,000, right? And the same thing all the way through all the years of the project, right? We have a few other entry points where you can go in there and talk about there may be other local municipal revenue. For example, if the developer is going to build a park or build some sort of amenity and it's worth $100,000, we would consider that local municipal revenue, right? Essentially, you're giving that as an in-kind donation. There are rare instances of other local municipal revenue that I won't go into now, but this is where you'd put it. If you want to capture private individuals, payments made to private individuals, this would be like a lease on a solar farm, for example, that's going to a farmer, right? You can put it in here, you don't need to, but you have the option of doing that. And the last thing is just notes on the project. You type in whatever you want to be included on there. If there's special cases, if there's special explanation for the CVA, you put it in here. What do you get? You get the output page. I'm going to blow this up so you can see it. It's a 2-page document that lists out the results of the analysis. So what we're saying is that $50 million project, you have a local spend of $32 million, right, on construction. That's generating 258 construction jobs to build the building, earning $12 million. Those are the construction jobs. But as you guys all know, as you inject money into an economy, it circulates a few times, right? Those workers that earn $12 million will spend some of their money locally, right? So the indirect jobs and wages are here, 69 jobs, 3.8 million, and the total. So during construction, you would expect the total job change to be 328. Now we're going into ongoing operations. We calculated 73 direct jobs. This is the jobs that are related to the retail, the 50 retail jobs, the 2 jobs associated with property management, and any jobs that are associated with the new household spending, right? You have a whole bunch more people living in the county. They're gonna spend money, and they're gonna generate additional jobs. You have the indirect, and then you have the total. So we say if this project moves forward, you get 80 jobs in your community for the rest, for the duration of the project. What's below here is just some graphs that show benefits in blue, costs in yellow, orange, whatever it is, net in the gray line, total jobs that are temporary versus ongoing, total earnings that are temporary versus ongoing. The second page of the report are all the fiscal impacts. There are 2 major columns. The nominal value, that's just the straight up dollar value, and the discounted value. Discounted value, we're just discounting at 2%. If anybody has questions on this, I can answer them, but I'm just going to go nominal value, I'm just going to say, right? So the nominal value of this property tax exemption is about $5.5 million, right? Again, that's the difference between if the project moves forward with no abatement and versus the project moving forward with the pilot exemption. You are abating almost $5.5 million. The sales tax exemption we split between state and local. The mortgage reporting tax we split between state and local. Here are the benefits. The local benefits. Your temporary construction payroll, your ongoing payroll, right? That's associated with all jobs. This number is the increase in property tax revenue, right? And again, this is the difference between the pilot payments they're making with the project and the site generating property tax without the project, right? So you have increased tax revenue, property tax revenue by $1.9 million. You get a little bit of sales tax revenue from the temporary jobs, a little sales tax revenue from the ongoing jobs. And that's the total local benefits is $69 million. State benefits. You have income tax revenue on the construction jobs and the ongoing jobs. You have sales tax revenue on the same. That makes $3.5 million for a total benefit of 73. Okay. Now we use a discount rate in order to discount future value of tax revenue you can get in the future here. So all the numbers that are reported down here are the discounted numbers. So the discounted value to the locals is $64 million. The cost to the locals is about 6.5. Those are all the tax exemptions you're getting, right? The local value. of the tax exemptions. So you have a cost benefit ratio for the locals at 10 to 1. The state, the benefit is that tax revenue, the $3.2 million. The cost is 1.9 to the state. And so the state's ratio is 2 to 1. If you combine all this together, you get an 8 to 1 ratio, and then here are your notes. Okay? There's just one funny little thing down here I will just point out. At the very bottom, it says, does the ID believe the project can be accomplished in a timely fashion? Believe it or not, this is actually in the legislation that's related to the cost-benefit analysis. The IDA has to opine about whether or not the project will be accomplished in a timely fashion. The default value is yes. You can switch it to no if you like, but that's the model in a nutshell. And I'm happy to answer questions. Hopefully we have audio, and if not, you can put them in the chat, or you can call me on my cell phone, and I'll put my cell phone in the chat if you want to ask questions that way.
That's a good idea.
Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm gonna call him. Sorry about all the technology. We really are not ready for QR codes.
We have workarounds.
I'm going to be talking into my cell phone with my headset on, so hopefully you're not going to hear an echo.
Oh.
Maybe I'll put my cell phone on mute once you call, so we don't get that going on. All right, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Okay. So you're asked. So thank you. That's a wonderful presentation, and I will open it up to or the chair wants to open it up.
Anybody has questions I can ask after.
Yeah, so let's start with the construction aspect of it, okay? We all know that we cannot include the construction jobs, okay, or the income on construction jobs as part of the overall pilot. So in saying that, when you're figuring on the economic impact of that, when you're figuring the construction costs along with the material costs, is there a way to break out the material costs? Because that would associate it with the sales tax inducement, okay? And it would kind of break it out a little bit more for us, because the construction aspect of it is not going to work as far as the pilot goes, correct?
Well, so we include the construction jobs as impacts related to the project. But maybe I don't quite understand the question you're asking. What would you want to have broken out and why?
Okay, so what I'm saying is, you know and I know that we cannot induce a project based on construction.
Yes.
Okay. So are you using that as an overall factor in order to get to the bottom line number? That's what I'm asking.
So, yeah, absolutely. I get it. So what we're doing with that is, yes, the construction impacts are included in the total impacts of the project, but that is not the only impact. And so, yes, you wouldn't want to rely on only the construction impacts to induce a deal.
Well, we couldn't.
Sorry?
We couldn't rely just on the construction.
So it's
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. We're saying the same thing.
Okay.
But they are one of the impacts that are considered in the cost-benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So once you determine that you can induce a deal, right, because it's involved in more than just construction, then you can go ahead and include those impacts in the calculation of the cost-benefit.
Is there a way to break it out so we can look at the cost benefit from both the construction and the jobs, or or would that?
I
have a similar question. So
I've dealt with the third-party analysis before. We had one a long time ago, okay, and it wasn't with you guys, okay, not beating you guys up, but it was a train wreck, okay, and there was a lot of feet dragging afterwards
there was a lot of feet dragging afterwards to correct it, and we had to go back in. And it was because of the overall cost analysis was based off of the construction jobs also and the income. And we can't, like I'm saying, which you already understand, we can't include that. I'm just looking to try to put it as, listen, I'm a stupid construction guy, okay? So I need it as layman as I possibly can get it. How's that?
Sure, sure. But I do just want to say that, you know, you are allowed to, in fact, you are supposed to include all impacts in the calculation of the cost benefit, right? So we do include it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's no prohibition. In fact, I think it's actually a requirement. You're supposed to include it in there as an impact, right? So I wouldn't want you to take it out. I feel like you wouldn't be consistent with other IDAs, and you wouldn't be consistent with the requirements of the CBA.
I don't think we're looking to take it out. I think what we're looking is there a way to pull out when we get down to the bottom where it says the benefit cost ratio is to look at the cost ratio with and then look at the cost ratio without the construction jobs. So we know what the immediate, like, hey, this is a 10-to-1 benefit, and then what's like what's the cost ratio going to look like, 5 years out or without the construction component. Is that what you're asking?
You know what it is? I feel as though you get on a slippery slope when you're including things that are actually not part of how we evaluate a project here. You know what I mean? I'm not saying take it out. I'm not saying, I think this tool is tremendous.
But if you look at it, Mike, on the back page,
Yeah.
I think it does that. It shows state and local benefits. It has temporary payroll. Those are the construction jobs.
Right.
Ongoing payroll. Those are the continuing jobs.
Right, but ongoing payroll is ongoing payroll what they're estimating to be created through 10 jobs?
7 jobs.
Over what, the lifetime of the job? Or lifetime of the project? Or the lifetime of the inducement? So that's what I would imagine it is.
Yes.
It's a 10-year term, it's a 10-year
Yeah.
10-year build out.
The ongoing payroll is the permanent jobs.
Okay, listen, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I know where we live. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so I'll play devil's advocate, okay?
I see horns growing out of your head.
I'm Joe Blow, taxpayer, and I want to, and I'm doing this for the sake of just clarifying for me. What I'm thinking here is, you're Joe Blow, do they look at it like we watered this down in order to get a higher inducement cost?
Looks better.
Correct.
Yes,
So you got to look at it from every angle. And I'm not trying to knock it out of the box because, once again, this tool is it's incredibly helpful.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
This is a great tool.
And I like the report. It's very readable.
Yes.
So, Chair, I had a similar question. In fact, I'm looking to delineate it somehow such that we know what we're focusing on and what we're making a decision on. That's where you're going with it, right?
Correct.
So I think we can leave the form as is. In fact, I'll ask a few other questions about, do we have anything on other, or commentary even, if not analysis, on softer positive impacts of this development, let's say. So there are things that happen once a community goes on. As you mentioned, if they're building some infrastructure for the town, they might get credit for that. But at the same time, can we delineate the investment into exact specific buckets, as Mike says, or Chair says, into construction phase and ongoing phase for the life of the project or the pilot? Is there a way to do that?
So
We
yes,
just have to
before I answer that, I am going to just say,
It's across
This
the
is
line.
adding it up. If you want
keep in mind
to undo it, I mean, you could certainly do it. But I think all the data is there.
and
You need.
how this is done in practice, right, is that the cost benefit analysis is a lens by which the IDA board evaluates the merits of a project, right?
Right.
But there is no minimum benchmark, right? There is no, it's not like you can't do a project if the ratio falls below a certain number, right? because of just what you pointed out, there may be other qualitative benefits, like the redevelopment of brownfield, or the removal of some blight, or the addition of infrastructure to a community, right, that needs it for some reason. So those are all examples of qualitative things that can be contemplated by the IDA. Those are things that are good things to put in this additional comments from IDA, right? Is like, hey, here are some other qualitative benefits of the project that we're contemplating. Now, to your question, how can we look, if you're interested in looking at a particular lens? Well, so the way our contract with you is set up is that we have a fixed fee related to the model, right? So that was the $1,000. It's a one-time fee only. That's all you pay, right? That's it. You get it. You do as many projects as you want. But if you want, like some customization of your tool, right? Or some additional information that comes out the back end, or a new tab, or whatever like that, right? We can do that on an hourly basis. So if you say, hey, we want to break out temporary from permanent and evaluate that separately, well, then Connor can go in and do that. So how would we do that? We do just like you said. We would take out temporary payroll, temporary sales tax revenue, temporary income tax revenue, temporary jobs. But we would also take out the value of the one-time. I believe you would want to take out the value of the one-time benefits, like the sales tax exemption
Yes.
and the mortgage party tax exemption, because those are all related to construction, and they're all a one-time, even though they may span more than a year, but it's a one-time benefit, right? So if you wanted to do that, that's how I would do it, and say, here's our one-time cost and our one-time benefit, and then everything else is an ongoing benefit for the duration of the pilot.
Okay.
I think that's
That
if
works.
you just got
Something
to
like
it,
what
yeah.
you have at the bottom of the first page.
Is it a matter of just making a customized report template for us, or is it something that would be an ongoing analyst requirement for each project, I guess? Is that what you're suggesting?
Just do it one time. If
Okay.
you have it set up however you want. And then, so we've done this for a couple different IDAs that have very specific needs that they wanted us to do. So we just alter their spreadsheet to fit their need, and then they're off to the races, and they use it as many times as they want.
Okay.
And on that same point, are the drivers to the analysis managed by your team, or we can also modify them? For example, the discount rate, let's say. Can we change that to something we like or we prefer, or we'll have to come to you?
You would actually have to come to us because we have to make sure, but we wouldn't charge you for that. If it's just like a change this 2% to 4%, we can do that. We purposely lock the model to avoid any inadvertent errors that someone might make by moving a formula around or changing some formula. So we wouldn't charge you for that. We would just make the change and give it back to you.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Not right now, but is there a housing one that you want to go into as well?
Is
or
this-
This
So
is the housing.
you use this as a mixed use, for a mixed use project for housing. Do you do it for standalone? Does the model come out the same, or is there other
Yes.
things we need to know for housing?
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
Okay.
So in this model, in the inputs, you would just simply not have any other jobs
Okay.
associated with it.
Got
You just have the two, jobs associated with the maintenance and operations of the residential units.
Okay.
But what we would put in the box is that we would have 40 more housing units that we don't have now.
Up in the top box.
No, in the bottom box,
Comments.
in the comments.
Oh, but yeah, we would, so it would go in here as a value, but then in the bottom of the comments,
No.
we could add in, anything we wanted, okay. All right,
Yes.
all right, this looks good. All right, any other questions?
That's good.
All right, well, this was great, I really appreciate it, we'll definitely follow up with you.
I have one last
Oh,
question.
wait, one more question.
So what would you agree to be a threshold to use this formula on every job? Or would there be like a benchmark, 5 million, 10 million? Would you utilize it for everything?
Use the tool,
Yeah,
the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Most IDAs will use it for every project.
Okay.
With the exception of, there was one instance during COVID that was related to the special dispensation where you could do just sales tax exemptions for small. What was it?
Okay.
I think what it was.
That's what I wanted.
No,
That was
this
good. That
is
was going to
good,
be my
yeah.
follow-up. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So some people will say, hey, our policy is that for those kinds of projects, we won't do a CBA.
Okay.
The controller didn't have an issue with that, and they agreed that that was an acceptable thing. Strictly speaking, if you look at the law, it's unclear if that's possible, but if the controller's okay with it, the ABO is okay with it, who are we to say that there's a problem?
Mm-hmm.
So,
We could always just run it through anyway. It seems pretty simple tool.
Every municipality has a really broad brushstroke on how they look at it, so we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work. Thank you.
happy to answer additional questions. Thanks for being a MRB tool
Yeah.
subscriber, and we look forward to hearing from you.
This is great. Thank you. And I appreciate you hanging on with all our tech. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. One good thing about this cost analysis tool is a lot of projects will fall underneath this guideline where you want a third-party cost analysis.
Yeah.
So, you know.
We did run into that earlier.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's in the law for.
It
most of the
is. I
projects
think
anyway.
we put it in after
Yeah.
a certain project.
Yeah.
And for the qualitative stuff, we can also ask the applicant to add to it and say, what else do you see? Because there are a few metrics that I don't think they're here in the model.
Yeah.
Because one is infrastructure, the other is the broad impact on the community and other things we discussed.
So what we should consider when we're looking at housing is we should look at, if there's discounted housing, the value of the discount is a public good. And so that should be calculated on any housing project, because that really is the value of having us do this. And if it was, they were doing it with 25%, but that's a lot of money.
It is a lot.
And so that enables parts of the public to have housing that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so there's the direct tangible benefit of that, which is the difference between the subsidy that makes between market and the lower payment. And then we extrapolate that out to the end of the time period
Right.
of the pilot,
Right.
whatever it is. So,
Correct.
I mean, it's
a real savings.
which this doesn't really show that. Right?
No.
No, it
I think that needs to be considered, because otherwise housing projects aren't going to look like they generated that much benefit. But the benefit isn't just the construction jobs; it's the housing that results.
And I know he said the cells are locked, but we could also look at the formula that's put in there and mess around with our own formulas.
You know, so
Or have them
to be
do it.
We could
consistent.
pay him to
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can do
we
that.
do it the way
Yeah.
we want it.
Yeah.
And then
That's just
and
it.
unlock it.
customize it. You know what it is, as per job, right? See what
I
we
don't
need. I don't know what the cost of that will be. You know, I don't think a lot of jobs will fall underneath that heading, but I do believe if you do get into the housing aspect of it, just what you're saying, Steve,
We need to be able to have it modified for housing. I mean,
it's
like
going to
the
have to be
difference-
modified.
Yeah, that's why I asked. You have to be able to distinguish what's going on.
Because in housing, there's not,
Yes.
I mean, the benefit isn't, I mean, the construction jobs are a benefit, but that's only part of it.
Correct.
There's this long-term benefit of reduced cost housing.
Well, you're creating a community there, right? So there are other impacts.
Well, we're showing the expense to the community of lost
Yeah.
taxes, so we need to be able to show the other side of that, of the gain of lower rent.
And the impact from ADA spending.
Mhm.
IDA spending.
If I can look through, because we're putting those values in about affordable housing and housing, and I can look to see where in the formula those numbers are being pulled back in. Does that make sense? Because somehow they're getting calculated because we're entering them in.
They're not being calculated though on his summary sheet. They need to be added into
Well,
the community
The
benefit.
value
Yeah.
Where
of discounted
down
housing.
here, this benefit, right, and these numbers, if we pull the formulas and look at what the formula in the spreadsheet is, then we can figure out where
There
that
isn't-
initial number when you know, in the,
So there should be a line for benefit to the public, because if it's a housing one that says benefit of the discount value of the housing. So from market rate down to whatever the new rates are going to be, that needs to be calculated and then extrapolated out for the length. And that isn't there. So
so we can add that as a line.
we would need to
that
have
would
that
work
as a
with
line.
that.
And then there needs to be on the input, there needs to be, I didn't look at it thoroughly enough, but we need to be able to calculate that. What is the actual savings between market and the discounted amount to make it affordable?
That wasn't in there?
No, I don't see it.
I didn't see it.
That's what I was asking.
So what
The
are you
housing
saying?
model is different.
What I'm saying is that when we're looking at when we're defending why we should do this, we need to be able to show the total value that's being created, not just the construction
Right,
cost.
so you're saying that the
So if the market,
difference in the cost of housing, over the term of the pilot?
yes, let's just say that that
10
the
years?
market rate is $2,000 a month, but the rate that's being charged to make it affordable is $1,000 a month.
So that $1,000 difference.
So the $1,000 of difference times the number a month, that's
Yeah.
$12,000 a year, times 10 years, $120,000
Per unit.
per unit.
Right.
That is value that's being created by this transaction.
So that was my question. You're saying that the term of the pilot is the term we use.
Yes,
So if it's a
because after that,
10-year
it would probably become market. Unless they.
You know, you can see it on the progression chart of the 10-year pilot, but people never look at that line.
Well, we
But-
may look at this for housing, we may think in terms of longer term, we may look at a 20-year pilot, because we want to keep affordable housing for more than 10 years. So that would make the value accrue much greater, it'd be twice as much.
I agree.
And so I think
That's a good
that
line.
that's-
yeah, so I can
That's why I
talk
was
to them
asking
about
if the housing
adding
model is different.
Mm-hmm. And that's where, I know he said the same, and I'm going,
We can present.
is it?
that. I think it's just.
Because Steve brings up a great point.
lines On what's already being captured. We just need them on, so
You
this,
really do. You need that. People are from Missouri. You need to show
yeah,
them.
on
Well,
the
I think we should. I
outcome.
mean, and that's the great, I think that will be greater than the construction jobs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's more important. Yeah.
It's also more important,
That's
that's the
value to the
public
community.
benefit that we're trying to.
That's correct. That's correct.
And it's tangible.
It is the same, a different aspect, but does the same issue apply to a renewable energy project or a data center? There's construction jobs, but relatively speaking, very few ongoing jobs, but an enormous amount of community benefit.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
a very good
next
point.
tackle for this committee, is to do a UTEP for energy projects. We don't have a separate
Well, from an
UTEP.
analysis standpoint, though,
Yes,
is
You know,
it's the same
so you're in
issue
energy.
at
The
end
only
of the day.
problem with these, and there's, you know how many there's so many solar farms going on.
Right.
Sullivan County seems to do pretty good with the solar farm
Yeah.
inducements. I don't know what actually it is. You probably should reach out
To Jennifer.
to Walt. Yeah. But you know, around here, and I built a lot of them. You know, we do a lot of them.
Are they
but
farmland
you-
ones?
Huh?
Are they farmland ones in
Yeah.
Sullivan County? Is that
Yeah.
what the?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably right.
You know, and you've got them out here. And you know what? I say to all the developers, why don't you go to the IDA? And they go, not worth it. Not worth it, they say. And I went, wow. You know, but I went, okay. And they put it in. I mean, they're all over the place. Go out, you know,
There's a lot of.
And in
go out to
Ulster County,
Shawangum, you know, and see what's going
yeah,
on.
I think a little more than half of the municipalities, there was some sort of law or legislation where the municipalities could do their own pilots
Mhm.
Right.
on the solar projects. So many of our municipalities have gone that route. I think if, as a committee, you decide that you want to create our own UTEP that's a little more structured, then that may be more appealing because it's got some consistency. And I think also one of the things that's the idea you can start to look at is, you know, is this land, is a solar field the best use of this project?
Right.
Where that may not be considered on a local level as much. We could, you know, but we don't want to shift too far into solar.
No, we can talk about that next time.
Yeah.
One thing at a
But,
time.
Correct.
yes.
Okay, so I
Anything
will,
else on this, actually?
so would you like me to just moving kind of, for those of you who are also kind of here for the first time, what usually happens is governance will make a recommendation to bring to the board. So do we want to make a recommendation to utilize this tool, and then with a possible hourly rate so we can get some of those additional outcomes that we're looking at to have on our, final impact sheet that then you would consider as a board? Is that?
I would make that as a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I second the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Okay, so
Aye.
Steve motion.
Chair, you're going to find out what that added hourly rate is.
And I'll bring it to the board.
Yeah,
Well,
For
we'll
the
look
ask them
at,
what the- we'll tell them what we want,
Correct.
and then
Yeah.
ask them for what they think
Right.
it's gonna
we'll look at the work
I think
that we
it's
need
worth
to do and
cost.
what the cost of
So
that would
otherwise,
be.
I don't think it
It's-
works.
So then we'll put that though on the assuming I can get it by the 10th, but we can go on the governance agenda.
Hillary,
I don't think
there's
it's gonna
no
be urgent.
doubt in my mind you'll have it
Yeah.
before the 10th.
Well,
Okay?
He's gonna have an
Easy.
answer later
Yeah,
today.
there's no doubt in my mind.
all right, and so then we'll try to get it on the full board agenda. Okay, all right.
All right.
I think when you tell them what it is that we're trying to accomplish, they will get that right away.
I think so too.
And we can't be the first people.
I was gonna say,
We're
we're
probably
probably
the first
that.
No,
Yeah, plus we have to ask for costs and everything.
Seems pretty obvious.
What do you
If
say?
I could think of it, it's gotta be pretty obvious.
I don't know, Steve. That was a good point right there. There's what they say. There's 40 other IDAs using this.
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, more than
You know?
40.
Maybe they're not doing housing.
I mean, yeah, that's the issue too, because I know when I used to research it all the time, I could never really find anything.
Well, the reason that they're not
Inclusion
doing
on
housing is
housing.
because with his model, the way it is, it doesn't show
It
much
doesn't
benefit.
show the
No.
benefit.
It
So
don't
So
show
if we
it,
can show
right.
benefit, true benefit,
That's the key.
that's what it's.
you gotta have softer points and tangible points. All right.
All right.
While we're on new business, Hillary, do you want to go through the ID application changes as well?
Sure, I'd love
Yeah.
to. And so if you turn to page 6, one of the things that, as I wrap my head around all the things IDA, is on our website we had available for potential project applicants a application that had last been updated in 2021. However, our matrix that we use was last updated in 2022. So if you turn,
Missing some variables.
yeah, so it wasn't matching exactly, which I think was adding to a little bit of complication from some of our potential applicants. And so there was 2 changes that I made. I wish I had memorized the page numbers. I apologize. Well, I made one before 18. Sorry.
14.
So, no, thank you, Custer. You're right. 18. Okay, so if you start on page 18, the first thing I did was updated the wages to reflect the current living wage calculator. So, just so everyone knows, jobs that pay at like around minimum wage cannot be counted for our IDA. We don't count those. That's part of our policy. And what I had noticed on the previous application is that they started at the next whole dollar from whatever minimum wage was. So I kind of copied that model. We could go a penny over. But to me that kind of gets away from what we're trying to do. And then I put it as a penny under, what the living wage is. So right now in Ulster County, the living wage, and we use the lowest living wage, which is for a household of 1, is $24.97. So we would have, they would fill out what percentage of FTEs, which is like a full-time equivalency, would be at each of these percentages. And then these percentages are matching what points we incentivize on our matrix. So we're at, a certain percentage over the living wage, and we match that. So I changed the numbers on that to match what we incentivize. That's the first change we made.
We should make that change every year.
Yes, and so my hope is that going forward, we do this and have it as part of our annual. So we can change our application as numbers change for our annual thing.
So, Howard, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you saying that the 16 to 24.96 raise doesn't count? for jobs?
No, that counts for jobs. It's
under that.
minimum wage. Under that
Oh, under that.
doesn't
Minimum
count.
wage is $15 an hour.
So if, let's say, most of their jobs, like 90% of their jobs are in that, they're gonna get 1 point on our matrix. If like, and I gotta look exactly, but let's say half are there and the other half are here, then that could be maybe 2 points.
Okay.
So they're gonna map out, and then they're gonna get points related to what this falls into.
Gotcha.
But I set 16 because I think it's like 15
No, it is,
right
right.
now.
And
Yeah.
that'll
Right,
change,
right.
and so as it changes, then we'll just.
Well, then
update it.
we'll update it.
Right.
Okay. And so then the next change that I made to the application is on page 21.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead. No.
Do we want to know if they're paying less than $16 an hour? Do we want to know if they got a group of people that they're really paying minimum wage? Just
So,
as a point of reference?
yeah, yes, we do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We do.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you just wouldn't get any points for
You
it.
wouldn't
wouldn't
get,
get
you
any
get a zero.
You get 0 for
But
that.
at least we know,
know
okay, this company's not really paying their employees. a whole
Correct,
lot.
and how they're skewed.
So
Right,
I can,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I can
And
add,
3 people making
Yeah, below.
50,000 and everyone else is minimum wage.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they have to answer on the line item anyway, what they're looking to do anyway,
They do.
so.
yeah, there's another
And if they
section.
commit to us anything from 16 and change up, I mean,
Yeah.
their hands are held to the fire on it.
So-
But I think they'll fill it out accordingly.
Page 19, they're gonna put the jobs in. I mean, it's really gonna be on me to go through and you guys, when you review these, to comb over that percentage and are these numbers matching up?
I was gonna say, is it just a math thing where we see the
It's a-
number, the percent here and this
Yeah.
number, and say like, okay. Yeah,
And you'll
right.
say, like, if they're saying we have 3 jobs here that are
Yeah.
coming in, and then over here they put 100,
Right.
we're gonna be like, wait, where did those other jobs go? But I could make this box bigger, so it's on, so this number is always matching this number, and then you
That's a
guys
good
can
idea, shouldn't
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that
we
way
tie it out.
just play.
Otherwise, it could get
Calculates right through.
oversight, yeah. Okay, so we'll pull all jobs onto this.
I think you should add, as Joe suggested, the number of jobs under that $16.
Yeah, so we'll put it up here.
We would need to have asked it since the total
I
is
think we should just have it there,
100%.
and then we just.
Well, yeah, because there'll be a difference in between, so the
Yeah.
rest of the jobs will be below 16.
Kind of streamlines it.
Yeah, and then over
You tie it
here,
out.
they're putting their, some more information. Oh, that's
Yeah.
independent contractor. This is not my favorite application.
Great.
So,
You
know,
have a favorite one?
not yet, but we're gonna get there. And I think too, if we do have move towards a housing policy and UTEP, we'd likely have to kind of overhaul this anyway, because we'd want to make sure that anything we're putting in a housing UTEP could be reflected in the application. Because right now,
Problem is your housing UTEP is never gonna create enough points, or not your housing, but this will never create enough
This
points on a housing project.
For a
We have
Right,
to
yes.
have something for
Yeah.
that benefit.
One has to
for
walk hand in
public
hand.
benefit.
So
Right.
that's gonna
Yeah,
tie
once-
to the other application.
exactly, once you guys approve something,
Yeah.
we have to create an application for it, and that may just be a signal to overhaul everything. Is there a more streamlined way of doing this? All right,
10.
All right.
so the next page that I started, you know,
10.
it'll all be ready on the 10th.
Yeah.
Mike has
Just
no
sit here.
doubt, no doubt. All right. Page 21. So I basically got rid of what was on there because it did not reflect our current matrix. Some of it did, some of it didn't. And put all the things that are currently on the matrix on here. I can pull up the current matrix, which I realize I didn't, if
So,
anyone wants to see it.
you know, if we wanted to add housing to this, which I'm not trying to muddy the water too much, but basically that community benefit that we talked about
Mm-hmm.
can be just another section, that's all.
Yeah.
To be calculated.
Yes, and I'm hoping we can
And we can
have
put
some of
points to
that.
it.
Mhm.
Well, that's what our
We're-
next
yeah.
discussion's gonna
Oh,
be.
sorry.
No, it's okay. We just don't want
Okay, tell
to
him.
spoil the
Tell him what
fun.
we talked about.
Spoil the fun. All right. But this is just so, because right now what's happening is we're getting on calls with potential project applicants, and then we have to explain to them that our very lengthy application actually, that they need to like deep dive in and start not using certain pages, and it just makes us look, in a way, for me, unprofessional.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were just hoping that this could match. But if you guys see any changes, this is currently what's in our matrix of points. So just for anyone who wants a quick refresher, if you, well, we'll go over in a minute, but basically if a project scores over 6 points, they're eligible for a pilot, which is a real property tax exemption. And this is how we determine if that project is eligible. Then we would get into a cost analysis. So that they're kind of two separate things, but the project is going to come to us and say what they're doing. Are they creating new jobs? Are they retaining jobs? The wages, the construction workforce, our environmental sustainability, and then community investment.
Eligibility qualifier.
Yeah.
So basically, they get 6 points just from construction workforce only?
So they should not. They should only, the most they should get on construction would be 3 points.
So is it?
It's only one of those three categories.
So it's
Yeah.
only one of those three categories?
Right.
So
Only
if they're
two.
doing paying prevailing wage, but they're not using any regional workforce, then
So it's,
how
if
could
you
that
go,
be? That
well,
doesn't sound right.
if, let me pull up the matrix here. I'll pull it up.
So if it's 75% is prevailing wage, it also has to be set, these are like cumulative? Is that how that works? So it has to be 75% regional workforce. And then if it's half of it is prevailing wage, then they get 2 points. And if 75% of that is 3 points, or they could they could bring in their whole team from somewhere else.
They should
No,
not.
they cannot.
And I think did you and I have this discussion recently, or maybe me and Mike, I don't remember.
Which one?
But my question had been, since we audit regional
So-
with low-key brill, are they required?
Part of our mission is that you have to use the surrounding counties, all right? So whatever the surrounding counties were, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, Green, whatever. Okay, so that'll bring you in. What happened here a long time ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 75% of regional workforce was a gimme on 3 points, because you're going to use.
Yeah.
You're going to use them. You have to use them. So it was a gimme. So really, it wasn't really real jobs. So the model got flipped.
What do
So,
you mean by real jobs?
well, let's take a commercial project that is creating jobs on there. All right, guy could be paying $15, $16 an hour back in the day for construction work. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So what we did was we made it a bigger bang for everybody's buck. What it is if you tie it to real construction jobs with benefits, where you can have a living, living wages, real living wages. What it was is that should be the higher number. Okay, 75% workforce. I mean, it's a given on every project.
Right. I see.
You okay?
And this is
And that's what it came back. And it was becoming a gimme, Steve, automatically to get you 3 points with 75%, the way it was structured. And what it did, it propelled everybody over the numbers, okay, to get a better pilot. So this thing was all gone through on the point schedule.
Is there ever a specialized construction situation or something where you need a certain type of skill that's not available locally, where they might say, sorry, we got to bring a team in from.
That is actually outlined.
the
Yeah.
25%.
So wouldn't that be reflected on here as like a negative point then or something?
Yeah,
or a zero or something? Yeah.
Most, it just says that 75%, but if you had like some kind of, I don't know, some kind of nuclear
Right,
technicians or
right.
something that were necessary for a
Something
nuclear
crazy,
power
yeah.
plant.
That's what we have to.
We saw that. That's a situation right now with Euphoria. I think they had to bring in some kind of it was Euphoria. I talked to Kevin about it. There was some sort of specialized, I want to say bluestone, but that sounds ridiculous that they couldn't find bluestone.
You don't have bluestone.
Yeah.
It can't be bluestone, but they had to bring in, and for a while we were looking at their regional labor and they were not at the 75%, and we sent them an enforcement letter. And what we do is we call, so what we're seeing is typically you have the project applicant, they hire XYZ construction company, and they go out and hire subcontractors. And so sometimes the project, they don't realize that some of these subs are from out of town. So that's why we have Low-Key Brill auditing this. And then as a team, we look at why. And if there's no good reason, like you mentioned, a nuclear specialist, we send them an enforcement letter, and then we get on them to hire local labor. And most of them are using like large, well-known construction firms who are very familiar with IDAs, and they know. This is not, we're not telling them anything they don't already know. So,
Right.
But this is what the matrix looks like now, and I apologize for not having it printed. And so this was the current matrix, which did not match this page. Right. So I was telling people to go, I was giving them this, and then saying, just put your points on the side, and then put it down here. It was a disaster.
So this is now fixed. So
this matches this.
You were revamped.
Okay.
Yes.
Whether you guys like this and feel that this
That's
is
a
what
different
you
question.
want
That's a
is
different
a
question.
totally
That's a
different
different
question.
We just want to match.
Yes.
we just
So
want to
right now
match
we're
our-
matching.
Okay, good
Um,
work.
So that, so we're looking to, I will make the change about adding on here
Which years?
all the jobs and including anything
Below 16.
below
Okay.
16
Your recommendations.
Yep.
And the percentages.
Yes.
and the percentages, and
Okay.
then as long as you guys are good, I would just need a motion to make the recommendation for the full board.
Right, so motion to present to the board changes to the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
All right, so 2, 3.
getting there.
All right. Good. And these are the only two we discussed on the application, right?
Those are the only changes I made. You guys are welcome to recommend more, but those are the
Alright.
ones that are bothering me.
So going back to old business quickly. As you both know, I had written a guidance note in terms of guidelines, etc., to Joe, our counsel, regarding a new housing UTEP, which he took an attempt to and created a draft, which is confidential. We have not shared it outside this board, or will not be sharing it outside until we get to a certain point. And
Thank you.
one here, I guess, to Trevor.
Here, so, okay, so can I just clarify?
Oh, I got you.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, we have more. So just to clarify, Joe had created a draft policy that you guys had discussed, the previous governance committee had discussed an outline, and that you had indicated in other governance meetings that you were in alignment on. So the reason why this is a confidential draft is now, if we're in alignment on the general kind of concept of housing, what are we doing, which Joe's policy was just one sentence, pretty much. Now we have to look at what do we incentivize. And so the reason why this is a confidential draft is because this, similar to why Joe's was a confidential draft, this is Hillary Nichols putting on paper. This is not the reflection of discussions of the governance committee. And so what we don't want is to have anyone from the public under the belief that this is a draft or
Correct.
a
It's not
draft
a proposal.
proposal. This is just for you to discuss, and it's really just pen to paper. So what I did was I took our current matrix and added some points or some ideas based on previous conversations of this governance committee and the previous governance committee about, and some conversations with the chair about potential things using our same format that we are using of how we would award if we stick with a points system, which is what we currently do for projects, some possible ideas of things we would award. So hopefully that's clear, and that's why it's a confidential draft as opposed to a public draft, which I think would be our next
So
step.
then we'll just take this and review it and not really discuss it till we reviewed it. And come back with it?
So
Because I do have a comment, but.
Well, I
make
think
it-
we can
discuss it
we
right
can
now.
have discussions. We just didn't post it publicly, so that way
Okay.
it's not.
so both
So on page,
Remember our
Rachel and
criteria.
Steve, just before
Yeah.
that, Hillary and I did sit down and look at this, And we wanted, yes, there are some things that are,
I'm just a real basic guy, just simple guy, not really understand all that much. But if we look on the second page, we look at where it says C, pilot, and we go look down at the categories of where you're going to get a pilot or no pilot. If a project scores 6 points or less, there will be no pilot. But for category 2, if they score 6 points or less than 9 points, then they do get something. So if it can't be both. So
No,
it's
it's
either
more than six.
more than 6.
Read chat, read B.
If it's 6 or less, they get nothing. If it's more than 6.
Then they get something.
correct.
And this
More than
like
6.
cut and pasted out of our current UTEP. So page 1,
Okay.
Hillary, page 2 and 3, current UTEP.
Which is not
Just
a housing UTEP,
for you guys to compare.
Okay.
That's all.
So
more like a template.
in the same section that Steve was talking about, in category 3, if you score 9 but less than 12, you're 1, you get 100% exemption. If you score 12 points, you only get 95%. Is that right?
Because we're moving out to 15 years.
Correct.
So we
Okay.
give them a couple more years,
Okay.
but we take 5% off. And I
Gotcha.
don't know how long, like, when this current UTEP became, when this was actually
Not the
written,
housing
how
authority.
long.
Well, I would think that if we want to lock in affordable housing for a longer.
Mhm.
So I think
Yes.
that means the pilot has to last.
You want to talk
Okay,
about Amherst?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Steve, because
I know
another,
it.
another idea to throw at you guys is the fact that the town of Amherst,
deviated pilot comes into place.
well, we're going to
Let's
try
talk
to,
about it.
this is an idea to get
You love that.
around, or not around, but as an option to go beyond a deviated pilot is the town of Amherst either planned or already did to vote on this policy, and what they did, if you turn to bottom of page 2, is they're doing shorter pilots, but then maintaining affordability post-pilot.
Mm-hmm. And this is for workforce, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Thing is that
I think
the value, in order to be able to, in order for it to be affordable, there are fixed costs. We are mandating union labor, for example. So that costs more. That doesn't make housing more affordable. That makes it more costly. And so the only things that we can do to reduce the costs so that it could be affordable is a pilot. That's the biggest one.
Mhm.
So if the pilot ends, then we're going to not get as much affordability.
Well, we can extend the duration of the pilot depending on
But
how
what they're
can-
saying is what they're going to look at is they're going to say, well, how much is the value of the pilot? And it's going to reduce the affordability in, across that duration. There's no free lunch.
Oh, no, that's right.
So
Agreed up.
I'm not sure that I don't think that that's a good idea. I think that, it sounds good because then you can say, well, we got something for free, but it isn't going to be for free. It means that there's less affordability. So it's all about trying to make it affordable is the inducement, and hopefully, that when we do that all accrues to the savings to the lower rent.
Yes.
But if we didn't have that, it would be a market. That's what market is.
So
So I mean, I think that's a gimmick for making 10-year pilot for 15 years in total means that you're going to get 2/3 of the savings in reduced rent that you would get if you had a 15-year pilot.
yes. So I think, assuming I'm following you, which
All
don't
right, let's do
assume
this.
that.
Suppose that market rent. I just did this with Joe, so
Okay.
$1,000.
forgive me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Suppose it's $2,000 is market
All
rent,
right.
and we're going to try and save $1,000 a month. So it'll be $1,000. It'll be half.
Mm-hmm.
And suppose that the tax per unit works out to be $1,000 a year.
Yep. Okay.
So every year that that the pilot's in force, we're able to generate that.
Yes.
But if we only have the pilot in force for 10 years, then they're only going to be able to, and they're not going to do it for free because they can't afford to. They have to pay the tax. So what happens then is that they will do 2/3 of that, because you can't get more than what you're giving.
So, go ahead.
Go
Pastor.
ahead.
I was just gonna say that one suggestion that I would, if I were on this board, consider is, do you, as an IDA, look at what that municipality or the county has said that they want to induce in affordability, and not put it on the IDA per se, as to say, well, we want affordable housing, or we want 30% of units or 50% of units. Instead say, well, what has that municipality said that we want to see in affordability? And so one of the
example
things,
is Kingston.
yeah, Kingston has 10%, I believe. And so there was some consideration up at the top is, do you want to put your foot in, throw your hat in the ring and say, we want to induce so much affordability?
I think we want 20% as a minimum.
Exactly.
That's what I think. I don't think 10% is enough. I mean, that's why the whole Kingstonian project fell apart, because they didn't have enough.
But is that a decision you want to make as an IDA, or is that something you want the municipalities making, is to say, do we want to build up? Do we want to have a tool for market?
So the problem is in affordability is we have to recognize that the amount of benefit that can be accrued to the people we're trying to help is directly related to the value of the pilot.
Yes.
And so anytime we have deals like this, or if you have more affordability, say we said the whole thing has to be affordable, well, then the pilot won't support as much of affordability as if it was 20%. So if you have a 20%, you have a pilot that's generating, whatever it is, it goes, if you had 100% affordability, then it's much less benefit that could be accrued.
I have a question. If I'm following this, and again, not sure I am, but if I'm following this, it sounds like the assumption here is that our pilot is the only incentive.
Well, really, it's a collection
of
incentives. It's the collection of these. So if there's a sales tax incentive, but that's spread over the duration of the time that you're going to have affordable.
Right,
So
but if I'm the developer and I'm only relying on the pilot to justify this affordable housing, then that's probably not a project that we would approve anyway. That doesn't sound like a good project.
There's other pieces to it.
Too, yeah, of course.
So it's like if we're able to provide a lower interest rate and therefore a lower cost, we're hoping that all of that's going to accrue also. I just was trying to look at it as, we have to look at it like the developer is going to look at it. He wants to build something, and then in most cases they flip it. They don't even own it. Some of them own it. Those are the ones we want, the ones that own it, because they're married to it. So they're going to make better decisions about the construction and not cut corners and do things that are better for the tenants. But you have to look at the package and the amount of the savings. It's the developer. Somebody's got to make a living on it. It's got to be profitable.
Eventually, at the end of our pilot, or however we structure it, they're going to lose the value in that incentive. But I think what we're saying is, or at least what I'm thinking is, that what the project is put together from the beginning, they're assuming that at some point the value of this pilot is going to disappear for them, and they need to have justified developing this project to begin with.
Right, then it goes to market rate. That's what.
But is that the only alternative? When the pilot ends, it goes to market rate. Would they not have factored in other?
Well, where's the savings going to come from? I guess that's.
What other incentives do they get?
Well, maybe not from us, but I guess what I'm saying is, why is it on us? Why is it on us to be the only incentive to maintain the market rate?
We can yell it from the rooftops.
No, it wouldn't be.
We are not the entity to solve this problem.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have that. We'll help. We'll go the distance, the sales tax, the mortgage tax,
We're part of the story.
That is a big savings along the whole lines of the job. The problem is that, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I totally agree. There's going to be, we'll use other projects in the past, downtown revitalization, subsidy, I mean, that all on top of what we're doing too is going to help reduce the costs overall. And the other part of that story is what we're currently dealing with, where all of a sudden, you've got a 20-year pilot, 30-year pilot on the books to really show a great cost savings over the length of the project. And all of a sudden, our benefits no longer come into play because it's upside down now, in today's time and era. So, somebody wants to get out of it, which brings us back to everybody's on market rate. You know what I mean? Right. So there's a couple of variables here to be tossed around a little bit. But I do agree with Steve. In order to get, and I'm going to look at it from a developer standpoint, in order to get a project like this off the ground, or to incentivize a developer to come here to build something like that, you got to make sure the juice is worth the squeeze here, because, I got 50 million. I'm not investing it to have a loss.
Right.
I've got to make something. It's not that I don't care about, people not having housing, but I have to have a return on my investment.
Right. And so when you look at that, the savings that we're generating are the ones that all of that should accrue to lower rents. And
so there are other tools like the Momentum Fund and the Home and Community Renewal. So there are other tools, and from my understanding is that it's not a this or that, it's a but for. So if they're stacking some of those other tools into place, one of the things, as I've talked to a few municipalities, that they're looking for to kind of keep in the back of your head is an opportunity to build up, because there are these opportunities out there to build larger affordable housing, like where it's 50% or 100% affordable. There are not a lot of tools for them, as they say, as different municipalities, and they're not here, so I don't want to put them on blast, to build up per se. And so this could be a tool. So that's where, do we want to have, like Steve mentioned, a significant affordability component that then,
otherwise, why are we in the business? I mean, that's the only reason we would be in it. If they're doing all market rate, they could go to market.
Well, there's another thing to consider would be the mixed use projects. And that's something as an IDA, if let's say I'm going to build a leather factory, which I could imagine probably smells, but let's imagine it doesn't smell, but I'm building a leather factory, and the way that my plot is set up is I'm a little bit remote, but I could put this housing, and it's a mixed use project. And I'm paying my leather makers $100,000 a year, and that this is within walking distance, whatever. Do we want to then tie the developer or the project to an affordability clause that may not work for that project? So we want to, I think
they're going to request what they want, and then we can evaluate.
We should think about it from, if we're going to require affordability, should it be project by project? Because we don't want to chase mixed use away, and that may look very different depending on what comes in front of you. That would be something I would consider.
I'm a developer. I come here. I'm going to invest in a housing project in Kingston. I look at the IDA and I look at that top line and I go, 20%. Okay. I call the city of Kingston. They say no. Area standards is 10. Where am I going?
Right. Exactly.
Where am I going? Municipality has the right to give its own pilot. So, you know what? I guess it's all in the magnitude of the job.
They don't have any money to give them. So if it's just, the pilot isn't all we have to do. We have financing, we have sales tax abatement. The city can't do that.
No, so and that's where.
So we got to look at the package. And if we were doing it right, we should be working together.
Correct.
And the city may have a different standard, but we're still probably more attractive.
What stops the developer from coming to Kingston and getting a 10% affordability on a pilot? Stopping it in tracks right there, because they can't do all the extra. Come over and petition the IDA for sales tax to a mortgage.
We could say
inducements. We could say no. Why would we?
Yeah. Well,
we might be okay with it. I mean,
I don't know.
I'd say case by case. I think if somebody's coming, we should have a minimum, because we're going to be questioned, and I think it should be. I think our policy should be something that's very defensible rather than something that's marginally defensible.
So we have talked about this earlier as well, right? What the threshold should be.
Mm-hmm.
And we we did think that it should be higher than or greater than what everybody else is doing in terms of city or municipalities. The question is, one, does that trump it? Second, can we have a greater threshold as a clause saying that if you provide even greater affordability, then you get certain points. Otherwise, you don't. If you're standard and parry
Right.
with,
I mean, if
you
somebody
parry
wants
with
to
the
do a
town,
full
municipality.
affordable project,
Correct. And
the
there
ones,
was,
the ones that we did are full affordable,
correct.
full affordable, but they're different income brackets, so
Yeah.
so there's different rents depend.
I'm
same
not
apartment.
taking thunder away from the municipalities,
Right.
but we also have to think about, we are the watchdog on this project too.
Yes.
And there's certain way you can craft this outside of the length of the pilot. There's a way to do that.
So, and that's what I believe they're doing, with they're maintaining it post-pilot. They're maintaining an affordability period post-pilot, which to me just kind of forces the developer to really look at their finances and ensure that when that pilot period ends, they don't just saddle Joe with a higher tax bill. But remember, we graduate the taxes in.
But whether it's in 10 years or 15 years, there's still somebody's
Still
going to
gonna
get settled.
Somebody's going to get
I don't
settled.
see that matters. It just seems to me that when you try to get something for nothing, you really don't get something.
You'll
You
never
get less. So why wouldn't we just be, realize that if we did that, we're going to make it less affordable in the first 10 years.
Well, so here's just another thought, which I think I'm following, is let's say I'm a developer, and I'm not, but I am in this scenario, and I'm trying to say, okay, I want to do 20% of my units affordable, and let's say I'm doing this with no incentives, and I can't make those numbers work. But if I add in my sales tax incentives, my mortgage recording tax incentives, my pilot tax incentives, and maybe I'm pulling in, and it's a brand new build, so I'm getting bond financing, and now instead of it, now I have all this capital freed up, and I can make those numbers work long term for affordable, to keep those units affordable. And maybe that's something we ask when we see their books.
If you're doing a project, it would make sense to have, as much as possible, things line up over the length of the financing. So if you have 20-year bonds, you have a 20-year pilot, and then you're going to have, it's very predictable. You can see how much savings there's going to be. That savings basically goes to lower the cost for the 20% that is designated. And it's sort of spread across that. And if it's, I don't know, not make up any numbers. Just look at that and say, well, as you're looking at this, that's the part that accrues, and so it's predictable. We want to have all of the benefit go to the people who are getting the affordable housing for that duration. If you have these things staggered, I think it's a lot more unpredictable as to how that could be valued.
So and this, the way I'm seeing the math in my head is that because I'm coming in, whereas maybe I would do 10% affordable now because I'm trying to build in Kingston, but as I'm coming in, if I come to the IDA, I've freed up enough capital that maybe I can't make 20% work year 1, 2, and 3, but I could do it year 4, 5, and 6.
It's just the opposite, because the big savings are in the beginning. They're not at the end. I mean, your sales tax is a one-timer.
But I've got all that capital I've got to expend in the beginning to build it. And that's where it's getting tight, and I can't take the hit on rent in the first couple of years because I'm trying to build it and recoup all that capital.
Like Steve's saying, that's your overall savings on that end to
Savings
offset that. I mean, there is another aspect of this, and it got tossed around a long time ago, is that, you take a look and you just induce the affordability part of the whole project, and that's it. You know what I mean? If they've got 20% affordability in the project, there you go.
And it's going to be for 20 years.
There you go.
But they're going to come back and they're going to do an analysis and figure out what the savings is. They're going to divide it by 20, and that's that savings is going to be then prorated across the 20 years. It's not that hard, really. So to the extent that we want it to be as affordable as possible, we have to be able to generate the affordability. The affordability doesn't come from the developer, it comes from us. Otherwise, it's market rate. That's what market rate is.
Which I think, given that we're trying to, and I'm just throwing this out there for you guys to think about, as an economic development engine, bringing good jobs into the county, when we look at what the rent is for someone who's falling into that affordability bracket, are you staying true to your mission with, we bring in these high-paying jobs, but then we create housing for people who have significant affordability concerns?
What we're doing though is we're bringing in
I'm
these
just
high-paying
throwing
jobs
it.
that are going to pay market rate housing, and then that's going to be able to provide lower cost housing for people who aren't getting those high-paying jobs.
I'm not disagreeing with any of it. I'm just asking, what's the role of the IDA in this whole scenario?
Our role here is to develop market rate housing that helps to carry an affordable housing. And if it's 20%, means that 80% is market rate housing for all the jobs that we're creating that pay a lot. And we have 20% that accrues to people that need that help. They can't afford market rate housing. That's what we're doing.
Do we run, and maybe this is just how I'm interpreting it, but do we run the risk of a critique that we are focused a little too much on what we're not going to incentivize then, as opposed to what we are? I don't think there's much argument against what you're saying at all. The math makes sense, the incentive makes sense, and why we want to do it makes sense. But what I'm not sure I understand, and I feel we'd be vulnerable to this question, is why would we not do a project? Like, if we set this 20, why do we not want to see a project that would have a 10% affordable if all of the other things about it that, that we're incentivizing with points make sense to us? How are we serving Ulster County if we say we won't look at a project that comes below this number, which we are setting intentionally high for all of the right altruistic reasons?
Right.
But if it was 18% affordable housing, there could be a formula.
You always have the way of looking at it from a different perspective.
But I want us to hit that. I do want us to hit the 20%.
But I'm saying if you're going to do that, then why not 5% or 2% or 1%? I mean, it's an arbitrary number that we say in order for it to have enough benefit to be able to justify what we offer.
But how do we do that?
We
How do we do that
We can have a
without?
progressive rate.
Maybe that is the answer.
It's a simple
right?
solution because
How do
we
we
are
do
sticking to what the municipal requirement is. We don't want to go below or above that, but
Of course not.
we have a ratchet that allows you to create points or incentives.
Maybe we have a partial pilot. We don't have 100% pilot. We say if you're going to do 10%, then you're going to get half the pilot.
The question is,
that reverts back to what they did in whatever Amherst almost, not where you just have designated workforce, but you go to a 5-year pilot, you go to a 7-year pilot. You can create the pilot structure. I think you've got to keep in mind, I don't think you can go below 10% because that's going to be an area standard.
You cannot.
Right.
So
You have to stick with what the municipal requirement is, but you can have ratchets over that.
Right, because we do want to incentivize a 20% project. Or
I think when you
100%
get
project.
into your $15 and $20 million projects, I mean, it escalates up on your percentage, on your, I think a sliding scale.
You're talking about number.
Yeah,
versus percent.
right.
Yeah, you're talking about absolutes here.
Right.
So one of the things I thought you might want to consider is that Ulster County has their housing action fund or whatever they're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is requiring a developer to do certain things, such as maintain affordability for 50 years. And all of these, it's got a lot of 50, yes, 50. It has a 20% affordability component. It's got a lot of things in it. So the idea was that instead of us making a determination and having all of these things, that some of them mirror than what the county is already doing, that the fund is not huge. It's like you can come to it, but you're not going to come close to hitting what you need to complete the project. Then we would.
Free money. I mean,
That is free money.
That's free.
Well, it's free money, but we would give them points if they're agreeing to all of these things, and then it's the county's responsibility to monitor that. Because we get into a monitoring issue as well. If we have a lot of caveats, we are required to monitor that. But if
The hook your wagon clause.
if we say, yeah, we basically, thank you, Mike, if we hook our wagon to what the county is already saying, hey, we'll give you an extra 20 grand if you do this, and then we say, yeah, we love this, and we're going to give you 2 more points towards a better pilot if you do it. And then that way we're in symmetry with what the county is trying to also incentivize.
Well, I think we should have maybe a couple different options. So if somebody wants to opt into the county plan, then we support that differently.
As a points, that's what I'm saying, is you just get points for it. You don't have to, but we give you more points.
Yeah, but if they did that, then we would give them more points, and then I think we'd be in sync with whatever the county say is going to grant for the, can the county grant pilots? They don't do that.
The counties won't do pilots, but they, I guess, and I don't know if it's passed yet, but they're trying to use some of that increased occupancy tax for the hotels to generate money for the fund. And then if a developer comes in, if they agree to all these stipulations, they can come and utilize some money from the fund.
And what that does, it creates a pool of value of dollars. And then the developer is going to apply that to be able to offset the rent. We're back to the same thing again. It's not.
And how do we incentivize that? Because are we including that in our math? Because that's a but-for, right?
So the but-for is the overall but-for. So they could stack it. Say like, but
so
for.
we could work with the county and be their bank and provide all the benefits that we have to their developers and ask them to be the monitor. I mean, that would be reasonable. Yeah. And then we don't really care. I mean, it's up to the county to decide which projects they want. We're just basically financing it.
Yeah. We're a tool for the county to get these projects.
I'm all on board for that. But I think there should be we should have a different approach, like you're saying. So if we have developers that just want to come to us and don't want to have something for 50 years, they don't think that doesn't work for them.
They're not tied to having to use that, but it's an option.
50 years.
50 years.
That's a housing authority.
Yeah.
That's a housing authority.
Well, I didn't write it.
Social project, not a.
I'm not beating it down. I mean,
No, I agree. No,
if somebody signs up for it.
But who's going to be around in 50 years
I'll be around in 50 years.
That's true. You will probably retire next year. But no, it's for an organization. 50-year time period is a long time.
It is a long time.
Right? So it's not going to. That's not feasible.
Well, but it's a way for us to say that we stand behind
I think
the
we should do
incentives of
that.
the county.
I think there should be, we need our own thing, but we should be willing to support the county on their projects, but they need to monitor it, so it's up to them.
Exactly, and then we get that affordability piece that we need to support the county in their efforts to create affordable housing. The developer wins because they get a better pilot from us.
And I agree with Rachel that you don't want to paint yourself into a corner on a percentage.
Yeah,
really
that's my concern as well.
If there's a possibility, and we use what Steve brought up, I'm looking at it. These jobs are on project by project basis on how you incentivize. You take a $30 million housing project that's coming to us, and they're looking for a 15 or a 20-year pilot. Okay. I mean, maybe the percentages, on affordability is greater on that project as opposed to, something with, correct.
Yeah.
And does a 20% or higher requirement, is that a sticker shock to anybody?
I think if you're in a land of where they already have a 10% in that area, we'll use Kingston again. 20% is a sticker shock around here. But I think when you get out, you're spread out, and you get up into, up 28 or way down 9W or out 209, you know what I mean? We're talking a whole different animal,
I think that I really think we ought to, if we're going to be giving incentives, the incentive should be generating value. And so I think that I think that whatever the value is that we're giving should be accruing. If it's a small value, then it doesn't cover as many units.
Correct.
Or maybe for not as long. But if we're giving a big value, if we're going to give someone a 20-year pilot, that's a large value, and they should.
Yes, that I agree with.
I do suggest that maybe your group also looks at a new distressed area map.
Well, we talked about
Okay?
I don't know if we can use one that's
one right
not,
now.
what, can
No,
we
no,
make
I'm
our
not
own?
saying you create it.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm saying you gotta go take a look.
at it.
You gotta go take a look at the.
Yeah, I
new one,
have
because-
the-
Talked about the list, inventory list.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah,
because we crossed this bridge a long time ago
Yes.
where we thought this was that, and, you know, we'll use standalone hotels, you know what I mean? Standalone hotels, and, how many do you build in a distressed area before it's no longer a distressed area? 30, 50, what's the cap on that? You know, so we need to take a look at that.
so I
And
guess,
also where there's.
Things are
more
changing.
Well, where there's more infrastructure need, we can identify those too.
so we can look at the distressed area map.
It's pretty big red on that map.
So we're right now pretty mid-tier across the county. I'm not seeing a lot of.
Is it just yellow?
No, there's a lot of orange. I remember seeing it.
I don't see any. Yeah.
problem. What's
No.
the problem?
There is no distressed
Yeah.
area.
No.
Yeah.
Well, this is solved. Listen, we've solved the problem.
No, I remember.
It
seeing
only
in
took one
March.
meeting.
This is the current one.
We don't
Um,
need affordable housing.
Hillary, get a
We don't
press,
need any
get a
affordable.
press
Problem
release
solved.
out.
Exactly.
We
The
are,
problem
we
is,
are
yeah.
good.
That is great.
No.
All right,
hard
let's
to believe.
does anyone, what's Ellenville's zip code, Steve?
12428. We're not distressed anymore.
Oh,
look at
there
that.
you go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. See,
I don't know why it was showing me. Maybe it was just doing the county as on a whole and not
Okay.
my.
the county is not distressed. At all.
Yeah. So, you know, we have, this is Ellenville, they're in distress.
That's us.
Look
Look at how bright that is. See
Yeah.
that? Ooh, look
I
at that
know.
one. Who's that
1,
one?
2,
What is that?
4 is Accord.
Oh,
I
Accord,
guess
yeah,
they're
north.
distressed.
Yeah, I live there.
Fallsburg, that's still living.
So let's look at New Paltz. 12561.
Yeah, what do you got there? What's that other one? What's the red one up on the corner?
This one?
Shandaken, up in the left corner.
I don't.
Shandaken.
Oh,
Liberty,
12754.
that's
Oh, that's Liberty. That's
That's
us.
All right, that's out of us.
and
Yeah.
out of us.
So we gotta go right.
Stay here.
All right, wait, let's do New Paltz.
12561. Yep.
New Paltz
Look
looking
at
pretty good, mid-tier.
And look at Lloyd's.
Lloyd's doing.
Yellow.
What is that? What is that one there? That orange one?
This
Gibson.
is Accord.
That's Accord?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
this
Accord.
is.
I only know that because my
Accord
kids.
is good.
Rondell
school.
Valley, man. It's
Find me the
tough
town of
down
Ulster.
Do you know their zip? I know
I don't know
Kingston. We can get close.
12401, right?
What's north there? What's that?
This is Kingston. Kingston's actually looking pretty comfortable.
there. Yeah, look at that's why they only give out the
Oh,
10.
this is another section of Kingston. This might be like East Kingston, which I think is pretty distressed overall.
What is that red one on the left?
Oh, this is 1248 Shandaken. Shokan.
Shokan. Well, yeah.
Shokan. Oh, we got a little teeny one over here. Glasgow. It's not.
Glasgow.
Okay.
Woodstock is orange. Not you? It's me.
There it is. We gotta be build something up there.
Yeah. What's above Glasgow?
Saugerties?
Saugerties. Well, it's all the town of Saugerties.
Yeah.
That's Hudson, so that's Saugerties.
It's probably that's Woodstock.
Telling me
Woodstock
what
probably
it
got
Woodstock's right there.
huge needs. Not really, but
What is it? This one's
Catskill.
prosperous. This is
That's Catskill.
that's Woodstock probably.
That's Woodstock.
No, Woodstock's down here.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not telling me what town that is.
Yeah, Woodstock's there.
Well-
Saugerties is blue. Catskill is red.
You know, the last
Oh,
time I
we're
looked at
way
this
up.
map,
This is Chichester.
we had way more red than what we're showing right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Early,
things
so
have
go-
changed.
Yeah.
Go down
We got a
there.
lot better.
That's what Steve is saying. I mean, that's what Mike's saying.
Yeah.
This is 12404. Now we're back to Accord. There's nobody apparently lives out on the other side of Denning. They don't even have. They're less than
You can't even
500
get
people.
to Denning without driving
I know.
through.
You can't get
Green
there
County.
from here.
That's where you, that's because there's no service there, so you have no data.
So that, now we're back to Ellenville.
You
So,
can-
you know, we have some distress census tracts, and I did put that on here. I think.
I seen it.
Yeah, economically distressed area, or maybe considering if there was a vacancy
Brownfield.
rate.
I just know
below.
from the last time I looked, it's been a while since we looked at a distressed map for a project, and I know the landscape has been changing.
Yeah,
So-
oh, it's definitely been changing.
You know, that's something also we need to stay on top of.
Yeah, and that's why I just have the maps and the living wage calculator as links that we're making projects use current.
Because right now, if I,
It's supposed to be
If I looked at it correctly, the town of Ulster wasn't even on this anymore. And town of Ulster was predominantly
A distressed area, yeah.
Okay.
Another thing to maybe consider as you think about these things that I like personally is, and Costume helped kind of like narrow this down, is that if a project is putting a certain percentage of their own investor capital, not grant dollars, into an infrastructure project. And we saw that come up in MRB. Are they building a park? Are they putting in new sewer pipes? And that may be something, again, to Rachel's point of not painting ourselves into a corner, but saying what's the overall benefit. So maybe they're only at 10% affordability, but they're going to build they're going to upgrade all the infrastructure.
So that's one thing I didn't, like, I don't open a can of worms.
No, you're fine.
But what's the quantification of, say, a brownfield or the releasing of a liability that you would get from a brownfield, or adding incremental renewable energy, or decommissioning something fossil fuel or whatever?
Under the environmental sustainability, right now we're giving 2 points to things like if you're building in a brownfield designation or a brownfield site, a designated business park, energy efficient or renewable energy use. Right. So those are things that we already have in our current matrix. So we are already incentivizing that. But then I added here where they could get 3 points, and this is where Mike or someone else who's much smarter than I am on this, was if you look on the EPA website, they have mandatory green building things, and then they have like voluntary, meaning these are some standards that you don't have to follow. Right. And so I always like to, as Mike says, hitch our wagon. So should we consider incentivizing some things that they don't have to do, like discharging whatever?
Right. Trevor, believe it or not, but they used to give away like a automatic also. Yeah. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 points if you used LED light bulbs.
No,
I'm not lying to you. To put people, this is how, and this was a long time ago. And this is when I first came on. I went, aren't they all like, that's like a gimme putt. There you go. And I went, what is that?
LED
so let me get this right. 6 light bulbs is 3 points, 2 points.
Okay.
So, things have, this is all good stuff. This is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of,
but these are just things to consider. But I don't know if 3 points, like how strict are these, or are they 6 light bulbs? And so should we give 3 points?
In the projects.
Somebody should look into it. Yeah.
If you're doing housing with the state, the Division of Housing, they have very strict requirements. Everything has to be all electric. Right. And they are very prescriptive. I mean, almost might make sense for us to get their.
Okay. They typically have a lot of efficiency issues that they want to have.
They want everything be, whatever star it is, the gold star or the red star, or the blue star. I'm not sure, but I mean, I think those are good things, and we could maybe mirror that, something like that, so that we're generating long-term efficiency. The insulation values are very high.
You know what, Steve? You're right on track with all that, because the higher the efficiency on there is the lower the cost also. I mean, this is all figuring into the overall value.
Right. So that's where
It plays into affordability.
More on the That's why you have to stretch it out.
Right.
And that's where is 3 points. How expensive are these things? Are they 3 points expensive, where it's a huge benefit, or are they not that expensive, or should it just be a point? And that was, I really didn't know.
They're pricey, that's why they get incentives too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're going to need a little more time to digest.
Oh yeah, no, this
So you don't
is
think the
just.
10th is achievable?
I don't think so, unless we're going to work through the 4th.
This is what we were saying.
Overtime. Overtime.
Hillary and I are hoping if we can get it done by September.
That's a you
We'll be
comment.
very happy.
Yes. I think we can. I'm here to just do it for you. Work. So if you guys set the date, I will push
Yeah, but we have to
be-
agree, so it
Yes.
isn't on you, it's on
No,
us.
we
No,
have
but
to
if
come
you
back with
need
a-
background, if you need just sitting down and going over this, whatever you need to get to whatever date you
I
want to
can-
set.
I can get you what, our developer could probably give it to folks I work with,
Yeah.
who do a lot of work on that, pardon me, who do a lot of work in that space, could get what those regulations look like, and
Okay.
then we get to talk about it.
And you have a good track on that because, we both know a developer. And certain developers never, ever come here, but build these units all the time, these kind of things all the time. And I think one of the questions to be asked is, why don't you come here? And I mean, I don't want to put the guy on the witness stand. I'm just saying, you ask him, so really, why wouldn't you come before this board
Right,
sometimes?
well, what would make us attractive to
Correct.
finance?
Correct.
That's not
I
a shock, you know?
Yeah.
We could do that. We could bring in Kevin O'Connell or Connor from Rupco. Ask him, he's a local guy, and maybe a couple others.
I
Or maybe
definitely
just
can
have
have
Hillary
them.
talk to them.
It's depending on what you guys want, but we could get some, maybe what I could do is just create like a form and ask them to fill it out.
Sometimes people don't like.
They like
don't
talking.
answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was thinking
I
that
don't like answering emails.
maybe
And I would take
less,
Steve on the offer of his introduction too.
yeah, well, just maybe less than coming live streamed may feel.
I think live stream would be difficult, you're right.
I'm
But
right.
at the
If
time,
they don't want
you
to
could
fill out a
just-
quick questionnaire.
You
You could do
Yep.
this,
Yeah.
the legwork for
Well,
us,
yeah,
and
and bring
then
some summary.
some
How about some summary
summaries and-
data?
stuff that might be, we want to be, we want to get this work.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider, just so everyone has background information that, this kind of came new to Mike and I recently, is that on the bonding, so now we're kind of getting away from the pilot, the bond financing is another incentive that the IDA has in the housing realm, but it's for new housing construction only.
We didn't know that.
We did not know that.
Right, that
So-
caught us off guard.
Yeah.
That was a new twist on it, and actually, Chris, we were supposed to touch base on that in orientation, but
We kind of ran out of time.
yeah, but
and it
we're
got-
going to have, one of these meetings, we'll have, Chris touch base on that along with Joe
Yeah.
about that source of bonding because, we were talking about a project and then all of a sudden we had to pump the brakes because he come in out of right field with that one.
Yeah.
And we went, yeah, we can't do that. What do you mean?
I mean, if you look at things like our project at Woodland Pond, where
Yeah.
that's housing, it's a
That's a
large,
great project.
it's an incredible
I need to
project.
call the meeting to adjourn first before you guys close
Yeah.
your folders.
Sorry,
Oh,
Chair.
sorry. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Chair.
No, that's quite all right. All right, so we'll move forward on the housing discussion and others. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Unless there is anything else.
Oh.
All right, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Do we want to take a break or just get into UCCRC immediately? I'm okay with getting in.
Let's just do it.
All right.
Sure.
So calling to the order, meeting of Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation, July 2nd, 2024, 10 a.m. I did not read the mission previously, so please I apologize on that, but I'll read it now. Mission of the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation is to promote community and economic development in Ulster County in ways that complement the work of Ulster County, primarily through issuing and selling bonds for non-profit or institutions. All right. Roll call, Mr. Kelly.
Present.
Ms. Silverman.
Present.
And Costa is here as well. May I please get a motion to approve minutes once you have been able to review?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. No public comment, I believe. We don't need an executive session as well. And for both the new and old business, we have discussed the items in the UCIDA meeting. If there's anything else we can discuss, otherwise I would like to call a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Meeting
Aye.
adjourned.
All right. I'm
I think
making
we
them
should have
1
taken
minute
20
apart.
minutes in between.